when it comes to tariffs, like having a 20% tariff on all imports, whether or not it's 20 or 10%, it's up in the air, or the 60% tariff on Chinese import, the 200% tariff on imported vehicles from Mexico. In order to do it, it would take executive action. He doesn't really need Congress to enact tariffs. And what he does need, though, for Congress is simply most of everything is taxes, not tariffs. That is, well, I mean, tariffs are a form of tax, but extending the 2017 tax cuts, lower corporate taxes, and to eliminate federal income tax.
Well, yeah.
This would be this is the most interesting, whether or not he can pull off eliminating federal income tax, if he actually will go for it. Because what I think would be very interesting is if you impose tariffs, it will lead to, at minimum, short-term inflation, especially if you're taxing raw materials. What you can do is if you eliminate federal income tax, you can effectively offset the cost of inflation by getting rid of a federal income tax. It could be very interesting if you do this little gambit. The question is, of course, could you get both done? Will it be successful? And how much may the government suffer? I mean, if you compare that whole thing, eliminating the federal income tax, with then also cutting the government down in size, if you do all this in tandem, you can see I think it could work.
I think that's hopeful thinking.
It's a lot of moving parts.
I would like to say, though, that he doesn't really he only needs congressional approval in the sense of lowering the tax to zero, right? Because he's not going to eliminate it, because he'll need an amendment to get rid of.
Right. It would be setting it to zero.
To zero. But it would be a very big populist movement.
Oh, it'd be extraordinarily popular.
I think we're actually going to see the strength of populism or the death of populism kind of in these next few years. And see if senators go, okay, I get it. People want the income tax, get rid of it. Yeah. But we need it, or something like that. And I'm not saying, this is not my belief. I'm saying I think you'll see these senators step back, or congressional, or the debt hawks, for example, be like, well, hold on. If you're not, it might be a negotiation even. They might be like, well, if you want to eliminate this income tax, I need you to cut spending in X, Y, and Z. So I think there's going to be a lot. That one thing will lead to a lot of negotiations. I forgot. I think it was a congressman. He has a literal debt thing on his shirt that he walks around with it every day, and it gets updated by the second. Yeah. So,
what I think is really interesting is that prior to the what amendment was it that established the income tax? Was it the 17th?
I think it was
17th was senators. It was 16th. Prior to the 16th Amendment establishing the federal income tax, 60% of the federal government's income came from tariffs. It could be very interesting. Like I said, this gambit. If he does this, Trump imposes tariffs, inflation goes up, people are hurting because of it. It's the short-term pain that he talks about, or everyone talks about. Trump then turns to the Senate and he turns to Republicans and go, man, your constituents are really hurting, huh? Well, you know how we could help them out? If we abolish the income tax. And if you don't, what does that say about you? If the rest of the party wants to do that and help alleviate the pain and you don't, it could be a very effective tool. And then on top of that, these debt hawks were like, well, in order to do that, you have to cut the government or, cut spending. Trump could turn around and be like, all right, perfect. Like Elon Musk or...
no, it's Elon Musk and
Vivek
Ramaswamy.
And Vivek. Like, all right, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. We need to slash more, find more inefficiencies. A lot of moving parts, but cohesively as a whole tactic, I think it could be very effective, rhetorically at least.
Well, yeah, I do, that's what I said. I do think Trump has a lot of strength.
Yeah.
He can play, he can impact, he can use tariffs to then get congressional approval to lower income taxes to zero. It's just, I don't think Trump's a dumb guy. I'm just saying, does the Trump team have that strong of foresight? And do they truly believe they can do something like that?
Well, I'll say if they don't have that foresight, they should hire me because I have that foresight. And then just if you even just double that down with if we just drill, the energy comes cheaper. You can offset a lot of these costs, I think, in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I wanted to also talk about other things. Like, honestly, I want to talk about some of the acts that will be used for
Like what kind of act?
well, you know,
I see it on your computer.
See, I truly, you know, when I think about doing something and being so in the future, I really look to the past, and Trump's gonna. It's a possibility that Trump's gonna invoke the Alien Enemies Act
of 1798.
And so it's very interesting to me. We'll see. Like, but these are a lot of things. Like, what I see on this Bloomberg chart is the tariffs are going to be likely challenged by the courts. Right. The Fed policy that he's trying to talk about, maybe removing or demoting
Jerome Powell,
Supreme Court. A lot of these are going to be a very big Supreme Court fights that he's going to have to win. I mean, and deploying the National Guard, I forgot what the term was or what the court case or the bill it was. That's going to be a very big thing because there is a statute saying that we cannot deploy troops without like a Senate approval or congressional approval.
A formal declaration of like crisis or whatever by the Senate. Well, what's interesting here is a lot of people think that because the current judicial court, Supreme Court, is conservative in quotes. I don't like using the term conservative. There's no conservative or liberal court. It's strictly a strict court or a loose court in terms of interpretation. And the liberals tend to use a more loose interpretation of the Constitution. But I wouldn't call it like liberal or conservative. The law interpretation is not a liberal or conservative matter. But a lot of people think that because the Supreme Court has been heavily shaped by Trump, or that because it's quote unquote conservative, that it's just going to say yes to Trump on everything. That is not. I don't think that's going to be the case at all. I think they take a very literal meaning to the Constitution, and if Trump tries to pull any strings or tries to do anything that kind of stretches the meaning of the Constitution, they will strike it down, like how they did a lot of things already. And there already been rulings against Trump in several ways. I know people like to talk about the official acts case where it makes Trump a monarch, which it doesn't on official acts, but it just reestablished already established presidents, but. Simply put, the Supreme Court is very principled, and they will vote against Trump. I think on a good amount on certain of these policies. I think there's a very good chance that they will strike down Trump policies.
Well, I think if Trump does not deploy, or if he deploys the National Guard without congressional approval, the Supreme Court will most likely strike it down.
I agree.
And I mean, we've seen when Texas, for example, tried to put up barbed wire and try to do things in which they did, and they lost their Supreme Court cases. I think what we're going to see is a challenge between those two. And let's say Trump pushes a little too much, we might not see Clarence Thomas or Alito step down even. Maybe if they're like, oh, I don't feel comfortable stepping down, you're going to point to people that will vote for you. Yeah. And so I do think it's a very interesting thing of, like I said, and like we've talked about, Republican Party is a tent. And even with the Supreme Court, they are very strict interpretationists. And they have voted against Republican policies time and time again. So it will be interesting to see the divide on the judicial and see how strong maybe the loyalty is tested.
Right.
How strong loyalty is tested in the Senate. How strong, like all throughout these things, it's a lot of loyalty. And if I think one of the things is that when you talk about these moving parts, I think Trump has to do a big thing of uniting the Republican Party, because that's the problem. The Democrats, when they have Nancy Pelosi, I think was one of the best speakers of the House politically, in the sense of when she had a vote went through.
Yeah.
When she had something to present, it went through.
She had the Democrats very much in order.
And the Democrat policies, other than socially, I think differ a lot. And maybe even on climate change with how far, they all still go towards the same direction of belief. Deal. And that's the thing is, I think with Republicans, you have people that believe in climate change. You have people that don't believe in climate change. You have people that believe, for example, Trump, that believe bump stocks shouldn't be allowed or bump stocks should be allowed. So the tent is going to be really shown, or the tent's going to be smashed and put into a building, and it's going to be, you vote in lockstep with me because we all go in the same building and we all go up the same elevator. There's no tent. You don't get to walk around. You're walking in this elevator and you're voting all the way up to the executive office and you're approving my stuff.